I'll say welcome to everyone. It is truly our pleasure to have you each here today for our financial workshops with Truliant. And I'm going to turn it quickly over to Renee, as I was not as prepared as I usually am. So, Renee is with Truliant Federal Credit Union, and she is going to lead us through the journey of financial health today. So we appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much, Kate. I appreciate being here too. Let me get a little technical difficulty. Not difficulty, it's the wrong word. Sorted out. So good afternoon, everyone. I am Renée Rohrer. I am with Truliant Federal Credit Union, headquartered in Winston-Salem. However, you may know us best from our 4 locations in Alamance County. We have locations on Alamance Road in Burlington, right there off of the highway. You've probably seen that one. In the Elon community over by University Drive, and Mebane, off of the highway there as well, and in Graham, our newest location, which opened this fall. So we are excited to have those locations and to be able to serve our members in Alamance County. Is everyone seeing my screen? I'm not sure. You're not seeing my screen. Okay. Hang on a minute. Thank you for saying that. I need to share my screen. And I'm going to share this screen. Okay. Tell me if you're seeing it now.
Yeah.
Are you seeing it? Okay. So give me 1 second to find my notes now as to where they went. Okay. Are you still seeing this the big screen that says, "Are you financially healthy?" at the bottom? Okay. Awesome sauce. All right, let's get started. So today, our topic is, are you financially healthy? And so, you know, I don't know if several of you have been on these trainings that we've been doing roughly every other month with the Women's Resource Center of Alamance County this year. So if you have, then some of what you're learning today might be sort of a summary of some of the other things that we've talked about previously. If you haven't, no problem, because we're actually going to cover a lot of different things today that are helpful when it comes to you know, understanding the different parts of personal finance and how you can make sure that you are making the right decisions and taking the right steps to put you in a position of being financially healthy. So our goals today are to understand what it means to be financially healthy, which is more than a credit score. And we'll talk about credit scores today. And we're going to talk about the 4 components of being financially healthy. To get us started, however, you know, let me just do a little clarifying, or what is it called? Cleanup, not cleanup, housekeeping. That's the word I was looking for. Our presentation will be between 30 and 45 minutes today. Please mute yourself to reduce background noise, and use the chat for any questions or sharing that you may be interested in doing. I will go ahead and put out a disclaimer that my Chihuahua terrier she does not leave my side. So she is over here under this blanket that you may or may not see, and she may bark, at which point I will mute myself and hopefully get her under control so we can keep going. She only barks if she sees the delivery truck. So keep that in mind as we're going forward. I appreciate that. All right, so let's get started. Here's some questions for you today that I want you to think about. And actually, this is a great time for us to share a little bit. So let me go through some of these questions, and then I'd love to see you sharing in the chat about some of your answers to these. So how healthy are you is what we're going to start out with today. Do you spend more money than you earn? And there's no judgment today in our class. It's simply a question. How many months could you live off of your savings? And, you know, what would be your answer for that? If there are any comments, and I'll be honest, like, you know, I'm teaching the class and I don't think that, I mean, right now I could live a few months, but not the normal, like what they say, the rule of thumb, 3 to 6 months. And so that's an area of focus for me. How would you describe the debt that you have? Do you think you have too much debt, like not enough debt? Maybe you have zero debt, like my stepdaughter who's just starting out in life. She has zero debt. She also has zero credit. So, sometimes we have to learn a little bit about both of those things so we can figure out how they can help us in life. Do you know your credit score? And that is, think about that in your head. Do you know what it is? Do you have an idea of what it might be? As we're getting started today. And how easy would it be for you to come up with $3,000 in an emergency? And I know a few of you are thinking $3,000, like, whew. But if you had a major emergency, and a lot of times our head immediately goes to hospital, accident, something like that. But we had an issue with our fridge a few weeks ago, and I thought we were gonna have to buy another fridge, and those are expensive. So they were, the one we were looking at was in the thousands, and but just to simply replace the one that came with our house. So sometimes an emergency can be an accident, or sometimes it can be something that you just need to replace, like at your home. And also, what types of insurance do you have? Have you ever sat down and thought about, do you have health insurance, life insurance? These are all things we're going to talk about today. Kate, did anybody share anything in the chat?
Actually, I did.
Oh, okay.
You were talking about the $3,000 for an emergency,
Yes.
and how easy that would be. I had to replace an HVAC system. So I had to come up with slightly more than $3,000 over the course of the summer.
Wow.
And that wasn't easy, fortunately doable, but that kind of ties back into how many months could I live off my savings now is vastly shorter than it had been.
Right. No, that is a great example. And yeah, so you can see how one thing impacts the other and your overall financial health. For sure. Do you feel more vulnerable right now because you have had to go into your savings? Right. Absolutely. So thank you for sharing that, Kate. What a great example of what we're going to talk about today. All right. So let's get started. So you might be thinking, Renee, what does it mean to be financially healthy? Like what are we talking about when we say financially healthy? Does that mean that I have a savings account? Is that how I become financially healthy? Or does that mean that I have no debt, or I have very little debt? Or does it have to do with confidence? Like how confident I am in managing my funds? You might be wondering, what are we talking about exactly today? Well, the definition as provided by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, their definition of financial health includes the following things. So it's not just one answer. That's what I want you to take away. So being in control of day-to-day and month-to-month finances is part of being financially healthy. So is having enough financial cushion or savings for the unexpected. And notice it didn't tell you how much you should have. It just said having a financial cushion for savings. Are you on track to meet your financial and your personal financial goals? Do you have personal financial goals that you are trying to reach? So for some of you, it might be paying off student debt. It could be buying a car, or saving up for a mortgage, or to buy a home. So what are your personal financial goals, and are you making strides to reach those? And do you enjoy financial freedom without constantly worrying about money? Now, this is probably the hardest one, and we'll get into some statistics in a moment that will show you how Americans are thinking about this. But being financially healthy includes a lot of different things, and not just one thing. There's not just one thing that once you do it, you say, yep, I'm financially healthy. That's not actually the case for getting started with, on the road to financial health. Okay, so does financial health translate into physical and mental well-being? Absolutely, it does. What we know now in some stats that were released recently, 85% of Americans are stressed about their finances. And what that looks like, so if you're stressed about your finances, even little things that have to do like with your finances, paying a certain bill by a certain date, or maybe it's a much bigger situation, when you are stressed financially or stressed about your finances, you bring that to work, whether or not you know it or not. It can manifest itself in absences or headaches during the day at work, health issues that can grow to be much bigger issues. So we know that when people are stressed about their finances, that it can impact the way that they work. 57% of Americans who were surveyed recently, and again, this recently is going to be pre-COVID, because COVID, of course, made all these numbers much different, but 57% of Americans are not financially healthy by the definition that I gave to you earlier, by those 4 parts of the definition. So that's 138 million people. That's a lot of people to be in company with if you are feeling a little unstable about where you are financially. The majority of the Americans that are living in our country today could not come up with $400 in an emergency. Let alone that $3,000 that we were talking about just a few slides back. So financial stress can be quite debilitating. It can cause health issues like blood pressure, headaches that I mentioned, lead to other issues. And it can also leave you in sort of a predicament where, you might feel bad about having it to face an emergency or planning for events such as parties, graduations, weddings, etc. Okay, so let's take a look at some folks and we can look and see who is most financially healthy. So if we have Sharon, hypothetical person number 1, Sharon, she has valuable assets that are adding to her net worth. And then we look at Jake, he's actively putting money into his savings account. Pam, she has maintained a high credit score forever, which is good for her. Or, D, is it easy to tell, or is it not possible to tell who is the most financially healthy here? Does anybody have any guesses? Kate, what are you seeing?
Maria says D, and so does Miss Moore.
Good. Okay. Thanks, Maria and Ms. Moore. Yes, you're right. And the answer is it's not possible to tell because we need more information. So like I said before, it's not just one of these. So Jake, like putting money into his savings account, while that is commendable and that is wonderful, we don't know the whole picture of Jake's situation. And so when we're talking about financial health, we want to look at the whole picture. All right. So there are 4 components of financial health, and we'll spend some time on each of these today. The first one, well, they're not in any order really of importance. They're all the same of importance. So spend, save, borrow, which is the one you can't really see that well. And I tried to change it to a different color, but it didn't work out. So save, spend, save, borrow, and plan. These are the 4 components of being financially healthy. These mirror your daily activities, and based on what you do, they either add or detract to your current and future financial wellness. So as an example, how prepared are you if your car were to break down or you were not to have transportation? Or how prepared are you for an unexpected medical bill or house repair, like the HVAC system going out? And will you be able to save for a vacation without taking on any debt? These are just questions to think about as we're working through today. Let's take a look at the first one today, spending. You are financially healthy when you can spend less than your income. So that is spending less on expenses than what you actually make. Paying your bills on time and in full. And have a spending accounts that are cost effective. And we'll talk about what that means as we're look at the next slide. Okay, so spending, you want to first make sure that you have a budget. Creating a budget is really key to knowing what you're spending your money on. You can call it even a spending plan, because basically a budget is just a spending plan that you are writing down somewhere, or you are, taking note of in a way that helps you track your income and expenses. So the first thing that you want to do when you're setting up a budget, and this is maybe summary for some of you who have attended budget classes before, is that you want to know how much money you're bringing in. So your income from not just your work, right? But if you have income from other sources like disability or Social Security or birthdays, money that you get from your grandma, or any sort of income that you have coming in, you want to make sure that you take note of it. And then also expenses that are going out. And this is, every month you might have what's called fixed expenses. And fixed expenses are expenses where every month it's the same amount of money. This is probably something like rent, a car payment, where it's always the same amount. It does not change. And then there are variable expenses. And these are expenses where every month it may change slightly. So in this category, I would put your electricity bill, for example. Depending on the month and how much heat or air you're using, your electricity bill can fluctuate. That's called a variable expense. Other variable expenses might be even shopping or how much you eat out. These are also classified as variable expenses. So you want to make sure you keep track of every bill that you need to pay and all of your income that's coming in. And then the biggest thing is keeping track of things that aren't bills that you're spending money on, right? $5 here for a field trip for your child at school, although right now most are not taking field trips, so that's good. But you've got, some money here, money there, money that you used in the drive-through to get McDonald's. Like those little amounts can really add up to a lot when we're talking about reviewing our expenses. So once you've written down all of your expenses, you want to rank and separate your expenses by how essential they are. And so something that we do around my house, my family knows, I'm going to always ask them, is that a need or a want? And if you have gone through any sort of class before, and maybe you even remember from being in school, that a need is something that you truly need to be alive, right? So a need could be, of course, your housing, a roof over your head. I would say water, those types of things that you need. A want is obviously something that is just a nice to have. And I go through this exercise a lot with my children because they do not understand the difference sometimes. So you want to make sure that you're ranking, like, what's the most essential bills that I pay, expenses that are going out each month, and then what are some of the ones that I'm just paying and I didn't even remember that I had gone to McDonald's or that I had gone to Starbucks or whatever. And then you want to prioritize your spending to match your priorities. So if you have a priority of saving money to set up a down payment for a home, then you want to make sure that one of the things that you're doing each month is spending money when I say spending money, I mean moving money to a savings account to save up for that down payment. That is a way that you are helping align with your priorities. A lot of banks out there, the big banks, some credit unions like us at Truliant, have online budgeting tools where you can put in, obviously they have your expenses, everything that's tied to your debit card, and then it shows you how much you've spent in each category, be it food or housing expenses or transportation, and it does the work for you. There are also some apps like Mint is an app that can do this for you as well. These are online budgeting tools. So these are a couple tips on spending. A couple other tips are, when you're going to the grocery store, shop with a list. Even if you're going to the mall, shop with a list, and make sure that you plan your meals out, so that you're not just sitting there saying, oh, I guess we should order in tonight, and spending some excess money that perhaps you would be better off saving. And we're going back to the wants and the needs, because I can't reiterate it enough. Before you buy anything, like you're at the mall, you're shopping with a friend, and your friend's buying something, and then you think, oh, I like that shirt over there. Is that a want or a need? And I've been so conscious about doing this recently that I've realized that sometimes I think I can justify just about anything as being a need, but that is not the case. You really want to step back and say, is this something that I really need right now? Or should I continue focusing on saving money for that down payment on a house? And so you'll see there, what would happen if I don't buy this? What would happen? I'll just keep on living without that shirt, which is great. Is there anything more important that I could put this money towards? Like, paying a little bit extra on a car loan to try to pay it off early. Or even things like, if I don't buy this for myself, then perhaps I have additional funds to buy for someone else at Christmas, or the holidays. So those are some tips on spending. The next component in our overall financial health is saving. Creating emergency savings is a great start. So having cash savings to cover lost income. And so when I say lost income, I mean, if something were to happen to your job today, as we saw during COVID, that this happened to a lot of restaurant employees, hospitality employees, maybe even manufacturing, if they were furloughed or laid off during the economic downturn associated with COVID, how much money would you have to cover some bills if you were to experience a lost income? Or in addition to that, do you have long-term savings or assets, things that you own that could help you in the long run if you were to find yourself in a tough financial position? And so we're talking about assets, we're talking about retirement accounts. Do you own your car? Are you still paying a bank for it? And as I mentioned, creating emergency savings is really what we first want to do when we talk about savings. The rule of thumb always is, do you have enough savings to cover about 6 months of your income if you were to lose your job? And I don't often meet people that have that kind of savings. So, starting out, do you have any savings? And like I mentioned, that statistic we learned earlier about most Americans not having $400 that they could come up with in an emergency. So there's a goal to start with, right? Can you just save $400? And so establishing a plan for what you might do in an emergency is important, because emergencies happen often, more often than you probably think, unless you actually sit down and start to reflect on what's all happened this year. And so covering those types of expenses is really important. We're going to talk a little bit more about savings. One thing that you want to do, if you understand interest rates, which hopefully all of you have probably heard that term. So you earn something called dividends, which is actually rates. It's where you earn money on your deposit accounts. So when I say deposit account, I mean accounts that you actually have money going into. So this is like your checking account. Sometimes with some banks or credit unions, you can earn money for the amount of money that you have in the bank, in that checking account. So you want to look for opportunities to do that, and check with your bank to make sure, or to see if you are earning dividends, that's the word you want to use, on your deposit accounts or on your checking account specifically. And then the other thing you want to look for with rates is to make sure that you have low rates on expenses that you are paying on things like loans, credit cards, a mortgage, etc. So the goal is to have higher numbers on the checking account and what your money could make for you in your checking account and money market and those types of accounts. And you want to have the lowest rate possible on your loans and credit cards. These interest rates are sort of what dictate how much you're going to pay or how much income you can be making. Let me give you an example. If I were to, this is a hypothetical example, but if I had $100 in a checking account that had a 10% dividend rate, so that means that at the end of that month or year, whatever the term of the dividends payout is, I would actually have made $10 by just having my money in that account, if that makes sense. On the flip side of that, if I have a credit card and I have $100 charged on a credit card and the rate on the card is 10%, then if I don't pay that $100 shirt, I don't know, shirts are $100. What's $100? If I don't pay that $100 video game console system off right away, then that's going to add $10 to what I'm going to have to pay next month. So this is the way that rates work. We can do a whole separate class on rates and borrowing to go into more detail, but that's what you want to look for. You want to make sure you're actually in a position to make some money off of your checking, your deposit accounts if possible, or at least not lose money. And you want to make sure that you're paying the least amount on, or have the best rates, lowest rates on your loans. Another option might be to automate your savings. I know at Truliant we have a holiday club account. I think it's called a Christmas club actually. But what this does is it takes change from, well, actually they work the same. We have a rainy day account also. And it rounds up your change from some of the payments that you make using your debit card, and it rolls them into another account automatically. So you don't even know that that money is saving for you. So then when you need it in an emergency, you're able to look into that account and you say, oh, there's $200 sitting in there that I did not remember saving because it's been saved automatically for me based on some choices I made when I opened the account. So that's one thing. You might want to check with your bank to see if they have automated savings programs, because that way you're saving money without knowing that you're doing it, which is a really nice feature. You can also create separate accounts for your goals. So, you know, within your online banking, and I hope everyone is using that at this point, or at least knows what I'm talking about when I'm saying that, that is using you know, accessing your funds by your phone through an app, or perhaps even online on your computer. You can name your accounts different things. So as an example, I have like Renee's checking account, and I have one of my daughters, Leah, checking account, Gabrielle checking account, right? But you can also change those to say, this is my Las Vegas checking account. This is the money that I'm going to use for when I go to Las Vegas, or this is my sister's wedding. You know, this is the money that I'm going to use when I go visit my sister for her wedding. So you can set up nicknames sometimes for those accounts, and that sort of helps you prioritize where your funds may be going. It also helps you dissuade or talk yourself out of making expenses out of those accounts that aren't really associated with that goal. So that's a really good tip that's built in when you do nickname your accounts. And another tip is to distance yourself from your cash. And I know you might be thinking, what does that mean? That just means making it harder to get to your money. If you're a person that spends, likes to buy make impulse decisions about what you buy, you're at the grocery store, you see things and you're like, oh, I'm going to buy that. And then you get home and realize you already have two of that same thing at home, which it happens. So if you want to separate yourself from some of your cash, another way you could do that is through the nicknames, or even setting up additional accounts that you name, like do not touch to myself, so that I know I'm trying to save in that account. So just some cute tips on how you can do that. All right, the next, the third of our four components of being financially healthy is borrow. And I hate that you can't see this as well, but I promise it says borrow. You are financially healthy when you have a debt load that you can manage and also when you have a prime credit score. And so we're going to get into what these things mean. Are you carrying a lot of debt that makes you feel stressed or overwhelmed even? Are you able to pay your monthly bills without putting any of the bills on a credit card, which is very important. As a general rule, your total debt, so this everything, when I say total debt, I mean everything that you pay that is not your housing expenses. So let's take out, put to the side your rent or your mortgage and just to look at everything else. So maybe it's a car payment, maybe it's student debt, loan payoffs, or you're paying childcare, all of these things that you might be paying. They should not exceed 10 to 15% of your income, which sounds like not that much, but that's a rule of thumb. It doesn't make it law. It doesn't make it the only way to live, but that's a good rule of thumb if you are just starting out or maybe you're resetting. That's what you want to do. Now, those housing expenses I told you to set aside, rent and mortgage. The rule of thumb on that is that your those housing expenses should not exceed 30% of your income. So again, back to our example, if I have $100 and that's my income, what I pay for my house or to be in my apartment, it should not be more than $30. And I know some of you are saying, well, mine has jumped up recently, and that's fine. Again, this isn't a rule. This is just a rule of thumb, something to keep in mind as you're looking at your budget, because you might look and you might say, gosh, I'm paying 50% of what I make at my job. I'm spending on childcare. Are there other options or ways to reduce that? These are questions to ask. And then you will also hear, as you're going through life, you'll hear something called the debt income ratio. And basically what this means is if you add up all of your debt and then you divide it by your income, what is that number? And this is something that banks and credit unions and companies, Verizon, that kind of thing. These groups will look at your debt to income ratio when they look at your credit to see if you can afford what you're buying. And so this is something to keep in mind. We are going to talk about a credit score in just a minute. Let's take a look at breaking down a credit score. Okay. So I mentioned earlier something called a prime credit score, and it's sort of a weird word to talk about the best credit score that you can have or what is classified as a good credit score. To use the word prime, I think right now when people say prime, we think Amazon, right? We don't think credit score. So, but a prime credit score means a good credit score. And what I like to tell the teenagers that I teach financial education to is that, and I think this is a good analogy, your credit score is actually like your GPA. If you remember your GPA back in high school, which was your grade point average, your credit score is actually like an adult GPA. It's a number that follows you throughout your adult life and helps aid or even maybe sometimes deter which purchases you're able to make. It goes up and down depending on your actions that you make. And there's an entirely separate class that I could teach you about credit scores, but this is a summary today. And I'll get to this chart in just a second, but credit scores can go from about 150 on the low end, on the bad end, to about 850 on the good or prime end, depending on which credit bureau you look at. And again, that's like a separate class. But at the high end, the best way to explain this is at the high end, you hear those commercials on TV for vehicles, and they say 0% financing for qualified borrowers. And they usually say it in a fancy voice, which is what I was trying to do. That 0% for qualified borrowers is for people that have the very best credit. And again, when I was talking to you about interest rates, those interest rates are going to be 0, which means that they will solely be paying back the amount that they purchased. So they buy a $20,000 car, they're going to pay $20,000. They're not going to pay additional interest on that loan. That is a very small percentage of people that have access to those rates that are 0. A very teeny percentage of people. At the low end, so if you have a credit score around 150, 200, these are people that may not be able to actually get the loan that they want. They might just be told, no, we can't provide that car to you. Or they're going to end up with a very high score. It might be, not score, interest rate, like 20%. They might be adding on to the cost of their car. This is why a credit score is very important. These things on this chart are what make up your credit score. So the biggest portion of a credit score is your payment history. Have you paid your past credit accounts on time every time? So if you have a credit card for, what is a store out there? Gap or Target. If you have a credit card and you're charging things on that card, are you able to pay that off every month so that there's 0? So I'm going to charge 100 and then next month I'm going to pay 100. I'm not going to pay 50. I'm going to pay 100. That's what they want you to do. But even if you pay 50, are you paying it? Are you paying something every month? This is what they're looking at. The 30% is how much do you actually owe? So I charged $100 at Target, but I have $5,000 that I actually owe on that card. That's going to make a difference. Other things that make up the card are your length of time that you've had credit at all, any sort of credit, the type of credit that you use. So a mortgage or a car loan is very different than a bill, cell phone bill, but they all still count. And then new credit. Like, what have you done? Let's say you go out there today, you've had no credit, and then you go out there today and you like charge everything in the world. That is going to look suspicious to people, and it's going to make them not want to give you money. So these are things that come into a credit score. So some tips on borrowing is make sure that you know all the loans and the terms. And when I say terms, make sure you know the interest rates. Make sure that you know when your bills are due and you pay them. Make sure you understand how long you're going to have to pay. So on a student debt, for example, am I going to pay for 10 years? Am I going to pay for 5 years? You want to look for the lowest interest rate possible. You can actually go to like creditcards.com and look up credit cards, and it will tell you what the interest rates are and what the terms are. So, sites like that are very helpful when you're looking for a credit card. You want to know how much you owe on every loan that you have, how much is left, right? So like I could tell you today that there's like, I don't know, $100 and some $1,000 left on my mortgage, right? So, but it's in that statement that you get every month that tells you how much you need to pay that month. It'll tell you how much you owe. You want to have a strategy for like when you're going to pay that off. And I know you might say it's like years down the road. That's fine. But if you're close to a payoff date, let's say you only had $1,000 left to pay, what's your strategy? Are you going to pay all $1,000 right now and be done with it and have that extra money to pocket? Or are you going to pay a little bit over the next couple of months until you pay it off? And then you want to always just be looking and paying attention to rates or deals that are out there that are offering lower interest rates or switch to a different credit card. You want to just be aware of what's happening so that you can get the best deal for your borrowing. Okay. Now we're going to move on to number 4, which is planning. And this one's a little different, but you are financially healthy when you have appropriate insurance. And insurance includes everything from renter's insurance, which I hope you have if you are renting, to car insurance, life insurance, health insurance, and you want to plan ahead for any expenses. Planning for the unexpected is very important. I'll tell you a little story. In November, within the same 2-week period, a deer hit my car. And this is a brand new car. And I also got a rock in the wind. So first I got a rock in the windshield and had to replace it with insurance, car insurance. And then the next week, a deer hit my car, and my car is still being repaired. So with car insurance, you know, I had what's called a deductible, which means I might pay a little bit more every month to have the insurance. But when an accident happened, like what happened in November, I only had to pay $100 out of my pocket, which $100 is still a lot of money, but I didn't have to pay all the $6,000 that it cost to repair my car. I only had to pay $100 because I had insurance. So when I say things happen unexpected, it could be as small as, you know, I dropped something on my shirt and I need to go buy another shirt, you know, or something like that. Or it could be as big as having to replace your entire HVAC system, or a fridge, or a car, you know, or gosh, you know, I sure hope not, but having a significant health issue. This is the way that insurance helps you when it comes to finances, right? You want to also seek out maybe a financial advisor or someone that can help you with with large ticket purchases like a home or saving for retirement. We have financial advisors at Truliant that are free for Truliant members. So anyone can make a call and talk to them, but there are also companies out there like Edward Jones, companies that you've heard of that provide financial advice. And you want to, when you're planning long-term, or when you are preparing for your later years in life, you want to make sure you have money that you can get to quickly, like in a regular savings account at a bank or credit union, and money that might be tied up in other places like retirement accounts. Generally, retirement accounts are, I like to think they're in this nebulous space because I just don't understand how retirement accounts work. What I know is I can't get to the money unless I have a significant issue and I need it, and it's a last resort. And that's because I'm saving long-term. I'm planning ahead for another cycle or time in my life. So those are the tips around, some of the tips around planning and being financially healthy. The other thing is you want to learn which insurance you have and what you may need. I know when I went through a divorce a few years ago, I moved from my house into an apartment temporarily, but I did have to seek out renter's insurance. And I'm glad I did, because there was like a sprinkler issue with the apartment above me. And so of course that caused some issue to my apartment and some of my things. But you want to make sure that you know when life changes for you, you want to make sure that you know what you need to be planning always. And you can create a routine for reviewing your personal finances. Maybe it's on your birthday. Every year on your birthday, you're going to check your credit report. It might be, every, I don't know, tax day. A lot of people do it around tax day because it's always the same day, April 15th. You review your budget, you review your rates. You want to sort of plan to make sure that you have the best resources for what you're trying to do. All right, so the 4 components, again, of being financially healthy, we talked about spending, which you want to determine what you're actually paying. What are your expenses that you're actually paying? And what could you reduce? You want to talk about saving, how to automate it, what you might need to start saving for emergencies. Borrowing, which is maintaining a healthy debt to income ratio and monitoring your credit, and planning, utilizing your resources like a financial advisor if you need that, but basically making sure you know your insurance, what you have is insurance, and what you may need when your life changes as you're going ahead. Also, we all experience sometimes increases in our income or decreases in our income. And you want to make sure you have a plan always for what you might do so that you can still accommodate and reach your goals, but also pay your bills and take care of your family. So I have a handout and I'd like to share this with Kate so she can send it out. The handout has a quiz. It's like a 2-page quiz at the end, and it asks you to answer some questions that are personal to you about your financial health. And then it provides this lovely barometer to judge whether or not you are financially healthy based on the answers that you provide. It has some information and tips for how to be financially healthy. It also includes some of what I covered today. So in just a moment, I will drop that into the chat. And, as you are working forward on improving your financial health, I want to remind you that, taking part of these classes with Women's Resource Center of Alamance County is a great way to stay connected to your health, your financial health, and to learn tips on how you can always be improving your financial health. Let me jump out of this for 1 second and stop sharing so that I can pull up the screen and get that link to drop into the chat. Let's see if I can. Okay. I'm getting to it. Uh-oh, where'd you go? There you go. All right, here's the link. All right, everybody. Okay, so I see some great questions, things that were in the chat. 30% of gross income or net income is actually 30. I think it's 30%. Actually, wait a minute. I have it in my notes right here. I don't want to tell you wrong. It's 30% of your gross income, actually. And gross income is how much you bring in before taxes, for those of you that might not know. But yes. And so for couples, this would be combined, right? So it wouldn't be just 30% of your amount. It would be 30% of the income that both of you are bringing in. Or if you have other folks in the home that are contributing to income. So you might have, maybe you're like me, you've taken in a 20-something who's come back and needs to live somewhere for a while. If she's paying you rent, that's income that would go towards that 30%. So great question. And someone also mentioned that they love Mint. That's great. I hear that is a wonderful app. And I would encourage you guys to look up any sort of online budgeting tools. There are a lot of them out there, and they can be quite helpful when you're trying to figure out where's my money going? I know that's a question I've asked before. Oh, okay. I see. There was a question. I got a little distracted, but yes, trying to figure out where your money is going and not remembering all the different ways that you spend money throughout the week, whether it's gas or eating out or money that goes to your kids or money that, you need to do something, you give to your husband or whatever, figuring out where all your money goes. Okay. All right. Is everyone figuring out how to get to that handout? Hopefully. Yeah, you will need to copy it from the chat and put it into your browser, and it should bring you up to the Truliant at Work page on our website where these handouts are listed. Okay, thank you. Yes. Okay. At this time, I wanted to see if there are any questions or comments that anyone would like to make about what we learned today. And hopefully you did learn something that you didn't know. Maybe we could take this moment for you to drop one thing into the chat that you learned that was news to you today. Okay. All right. All right. I don't see any questions. Anybody? Oh, I learned about the importance of insurance. Very good. Insurance is important. And sometimes we don't think about it when we're thinking about financial health, for sure. And what the connection is to our finances. Yes. Oh, insurance. Good, good, good. Yeah, insurance is one of those things, you know, you've probably, when we talk about financial health, you probably heard about budgeting and saving, but insurance can really go a long way to, and also that Truliant has financial advisors. Well, yes, we do. Insurance can go a long way to helping you when you have an emergency. I mean, I think it's all been quite a benefit to us this year to not have to pay to get the vaccines, or in some cases to receive testing for COVID. Can you imagine how much that could have cost each of us if we had to pay for those types of things? So. Okay, Vanessa has a question about the recording. Kate, are you able to answer that?
I sure can. Vanessa, I'm happy to share that with you. I usually edit them up and we put them up on our YouTube site. So as soon as that's done, I can send you the link.
And I saw a question about, do you think it's better to own a home or rent if you are a single person? That is such a great question. So it depends, in my opinion, and I'm not a financial advisor, but in my opinion, I believe I would consider a couple of factors. And actually, we're going through this right now with our 26-year-old. Number one, you know, in your area, what are the prices for renting and what are the prices for owning a home? Where we live, just south of Winston-Salem, to rent an apartment right now, it's $1,100. And I will let you all know that we live on an acre of land in North Davidson County, and we pay less than that for our mortgage. So for a smaller house, the mortgage may end up being less than that. However, it's a trade-off, right, between yard work and other responsibilities that come with owning a home versus having someone else cover those responsibilities when you are renting. But, you know, there's other considerations. Do you have pets? How much would those tack on to you renting? Is there a specific area that you want to be in where, you know, perhaps there are no apartments and owning a home might be the best way? Do you think you'll stay long-term in the area where you're looking to make a move? If you aren't sure, then renting might be best versus purchasing a home. So there's lots of factors, and I don't want to, there's not a way to say one is better than the other without considering all the factors. But it's a really good question and one that we continue to wrestle with at our house for our 20-something daughter. And these are the types of things that we're going through, the types of questions that we're asking her and that she's asking other people as well to get a sense of it. So I hate that I'm not able to just like outright say it's A or B, but it really does depend on a couple other factors that may be unique to you. But thank you for asking the question.
I have something to ask.
Yes.
So I think it's great, you know, Maria pointed out that Truliant has financial advisors. That was something I didn't know either. But I think, can you explain how, like, if we wanted to become a client at Truliant, what does that look like? Because I think credit unions often are mysterious for some folks.
Yeah, that is a great question. So it can be mysterious, particularly in our state. We have the largest credit union, second largest credit union in the whole country here in North Carolina, and that is State Employees Credit Union. And so because of that, to be a member of State Employees Credit Union, you have to work for the state, okay? Or have a family member who worked for the state. And so that makes a lot of people in our community think that to be a member of any credit union, you have to work for the state. And that's not true. Credit unions all started from a group of people pulling their money together at a specific company. So for us, it was Western Electric, which became AT&T. That's the history of Truliant. That's how we started, and we changed our name and all that throughout our history. But we have what's called an open membership program, which means in all the counties of the Piedmont Triad, you can join Truliant. You don't have to work for a separate company. You don't have to work for AT&T. You can just join because we have what's called an open community membership program. And what that entails is $5 to open a savings account. That's all it takes to to be a member of Truliant and to open an account. Other credit unions, most credit unions I've seen have that low entry amount. And some other credit unions in our area have that open community model also. So you might want to check around and see what might be best for you. I will say Truliant is a full service credit union. We offer everything from free checking accounts all the way to business loans, land loans. We'll give you a loan for a mobile home, which a lot of people won't do. Financial advisors, which is new to several of you on the call. And one thing I'll say about financial advisors is you can call and speak to a financial advisor or set up an appointment with a financial advisor without being a member of Truliant. And then if you like what you hear, then they can do the $5, help you with the $5 joining savings account fee that we have. But so anyone on the call today could reach out to one of our Truliant locations in Alamance County to talk to a financial advisor and then, decide if you want to join from there. But credit unions are different because you can't say all credit unions do this, right? We're all quirky and different. And, there's very small credit unions around. I know there's one in Greensboro, the Greensboro Postal Credit Union. That is a credit union of employees and their families that works for the Postal Service or work for the Postal Service in Greensboro. There are really large ones like state employees, or maybe you've heard of, the Pentagon. I think it's Pentagon Fed, right? Penn Fed, I think. But anyway, the big ones that you've probably come across. So that's research, right? That's just Googling credit unions and seeing what's available in your area and learning a little bit more about what we are. A lot of times what you'll find with a credit union is we have those lower rates, right? So we're going to offer you a lower auto loan rate than what you're going to get at BB&T, now Truist, or Bank of America or Wells Fargo, because that's a way that we give back to our members is through lower rates. And also we have lower fees. So if you withdraw too much money out of your checking account, we have programs in place to help you with that. That would not make you pay a fee. And we have programs in place that would make you make a fee. You just have to review them. So we have different things in place than maybe what some of the big banks offer. But I would say that about any financial institution. Wells Fargo and Bank of America are not the same. So you want to always do research to see, what works for you. Great question.
Thank you.
It looks like we're about out of time. So I just want to double check. Does anybody have any other questions for me while we're on the call today? I really do appreciate your time and your enthusiasm about joining today. And I hope that you've learned something while we've been together.
Thank you so much, Renee, for your time today. It's been a pleasure. If anyone does have any further questions, feel free to email me here at the Women's Resource Center, and I will reach out to Renee and see if we can get you an answer. Thank you, everyone, and we look forward to seeing you at our next financial workshop.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, guys, have a good day. Thank you. Thanks, Kate.
Bye, everyone.